Hey guys, what's up? Steve here, and so after some consideration, I decided not to use this color scheme for the GM I'm currently working on. I decided to do something more realistic and something a little closer to this, mostly in tone-wise. This is really contrasting, very bright. It looks cool and I like it, but I'm going to get away from like the designer camos and move into more military, realistic looking camouflage. So what I'm doing today is actually testing out a few different patterns. So I have some things in mind that I'm going to try, but you never know until you actually do them and see how they look. So hopefully you guys have seen the spoon technique before, where you paint a spoon to see what the color is going to look like. Basically what I'm going to do is just paint camouflage on the spoon, just to get a good feel for how it will look. This technique will also be helpful if you have 3 or 4 colors that you're not quite sure of. If you just paint all of those colors on the same spoon, you'll be able to tell if those colors actually go together or if they're excuse me, too contrasting or what. So yep, let's get started. So I just put a bunch of paint in my palette. Doing this really helps you visualize the color as well. It's difficult to see or visualize the color just by looking at the plastic cap. So what I'm going to do is just put a few drops of alcohol in with the paint just to thin it out. And the reason I'm using alcohol instead of water is because alcohol will dry much quicker. But if I were to be hand painting, I'd want to use water because the alcohol is a pretty powerful solvent. So if you were to go back over something you had already painted, say it wasn't quite thick enough or you missed a spot, the alcohol will actually solvate. I think that's the right word. The paint, and it'll just kind of mix it all together. So with water that won't happen quite as much. And these are not great hand brushing paints, but they do the trick. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So I've got one in mind I'm gonna try right off the bat before I take the time to really experiment a little bit and try a few other things out. So I'm just going to go ahead and start to paint camo. Hand brushing is pretty simple. I just dab a few drops on. This paint's a little too thin, but it'll work. And to wash my brush, I'm going to go ahead and quickly create a little well in the center of my palette. And go ahead and first wipe off the brush, squeeze out the paint, get some alcohol on there, squeeze it out again, and again. One more time. Or again. So, good enough. Now I'm going to go ahead with the next color. Which I'm going to try this. This is RML Gray. The first color was JA Gray. Get a little closer so you guys can see what I'm actually doing. I looked away for a second and that's what happened. So that's looking pretty cool. now for the next color. Got my choice of either JA green, field gray, which looks a lot like JA green, but it's a little more toned down, and some German gray. So I'm going to try the German gray. Throw that in there. And if you couldn't tell what I'm doing, I'm kind of creating little pockets where the next color will be. So that looks pretty good. Alright, I'm going to try the field gray and see how that looks. Dope. No. Alright, so I did a few more, and having trouble picking out my favorite. I'm gonna wait until tomorrow and try to make a decision, possibly then or maybe this weekend when I'm ready to paint. So this one looks really cool, and I think this is the one I was kind of going for, but this one turned out pretty well. I mean, these are pretty cool as well, so it's kind of really hard to pick. See what they look like under a shadow. I guess these ones are alright, but I don't think those two. So if you guys see one you guys like, let me know. You could just pick 1, 2, 3, or 4, I guess. And we'll try to make a decision later this weekend. Alright guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.